Have you ever had a moment with your kids where something just feels off? Maybe it's the way they respond to you, or the tone they use, or even just the overall dynamic in your home. And you can't quite put your finger on it, but you know your home has a tone. You can feel it. Some days it's light, some days it's tense, some days it feels like everyone's just a little on edge. What if I told you that this tone doesn't come from how your kids are behaving, how busy the day is, or how stressed you feel at the moment? It actually comes from something you put into place without you even realizing it. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it because it's quietly shaping the tone of your home, the way your kids respond to you, and how they interact with each other every single day. Welcome to Conquer Mom Stress, the podcast that helps you stress less and enjoy motherhood more. If you've ever crawled into bed at night completely exhausted, but still feel like there's so much left to do, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Jill Gokul, and I believe that motherhood is meant to feel joyful, not exhausting. Together, we'll uncover what's really fueling your stress and give you the practical tools to conquer it so you can finally feel like the confident mom you were made to be. Also, if you have a specific question or issue you're stressing about, head over to jillgokul.com/ask to submit your question. And who knows, you might just be featured in an upcoming episode so you can get practical, real-world solutions to the exact challenges you're facing. Every once in a while, I notice that something in our home feels off. It's not one big moment or anything. It's just the general tone, the atmosphere of our home, the way we're interacting with each other. One season in particular, my kids, who are usually happy, kind, and pretty easygoing with each other, were starting to bicker constantly. Little things turned into big reactions. They were quicker to complain about each other, more irritated, and more easily frustrated. The laughter that used to fill our home, it felt quieter. And in its place, there was this constant underlying tension, like everyone was just a little fed up, a little overwhelmed, a little unhappy. And I remember thinking, what is going on? Why does everything feel so tense lately? Because nothing major had changed. It was still the same house, the same schedule, the same people, but the dynamic, it was completely different. And then one day I caught myself saying how frustrated I was. And without even thinking about it, I said, I am so sick of this. I can't do anything right. And then it hit me, not just what I said, but how I said it. The tone, the sharpness, the criticism, and I started noticing it more. All throughout the day, I'm so behind. Why can't I keep up? I suck at this. It was constant. And it wasn't just in my head anymore. It was coming out of my mouth and into my home, into the atmosphere, into the way I carried myself and how I responded to everything around me. My internal dialogue had come out in the way I talked about myself and how I talked to my kids. My tone was no longer one of love and patience. It was one of constant criticism and intolerance. And suddenly, things clicked. The tone of our home hadn't randomly changed. It was being shaped by me and the words I was using. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." The way I was speaking to myself, criticizing everything I did, it was setting the emotional tone for everything and everyone around me, a tone of death and destruction. I was overwhelmed, behind, and frustrated. I had a major case of burnout. And when words slipped out under my breath about how I was such a mess, it felt harmless, automatic. But when I heard my children using the same tone, frustration, and lack of patience with each other, I realized that it was the power of my own tongue that had created an atmosphere of stress and unhappiness in my home. Here's the problem. Your kid's speech is learned language. The way you talk to yourself and others is quietly teaching your children how to talk to themselves, how to talk to others, and how to talk to you. Because your voice becomes their inner voice. And that inner voice of theirs eventually becomes their external voice too. You know how little kids love to copy everything? Like everything. They copy how you laugh, how you say certain words, even the way you react to things. You'll hear them pretend to be you when they're playing. And it's like, wow, I didn't even realize I sounded like that. The day that my 3-year-old came home talking with her arms crossed, saying, "I guess that's just what happens." Then she popped her hip as she gestured with her hand, continuing her thought. The words she was saying and her body language were so completely new and out of character that it was hilarious to watch. She was a little mini version of somebody else we knew. That's because kids' brains are basically wired to learn through copying. So when you're going through your day and you say something like, "Oh, I am such a mess today," your brain may not think twice about it. But your child's brain, it kind of perks up like, "Oh, okay, that's what we say when things don't go right." They're not analyzing it. They're not judging it. They're just absorbing it like a sponge. Your child doesn't just hear the words you say. They are internalizing the pattern of how you talk to yourself and others. Your child has this little voice forming inside their head that eventually becomes how they think about themselves. But that voice doesn't just magically appear one day. It's built. And guess whose voice it's built from? Yours. Because you're the person they see and hear the most. That's why you'll find their pattern of speech changes when they binge watch a new TV show or fall in with a different group of friends. The more you're in front of them, the more their internal voice is built based on yours. And not just what you say to them, but what you also say about yourself. So when your kids hear you say, "I'm such an idiot," your child's brain records that, like hitting save on a file. And then later, when they're trying to do something and can't figure it out or make a mistake, that same tone comes back out. "I can't do this. I'm bad at this." And you're like, wait, where did that come from? And it's not because you told them that directly. It's because they've been listening to how you handle those moments yourself. And the tricky part is, to your kids, this speech doesn't feel negative. It feels normal. They're not thinking, "Wow, mom's being really hard on herself." They're thinking, "Oh, this is just what we do when we mess up because mom does it." And mom is their example of how life works. Then those words and tone don't just stay inside their head. It starts to come out in how they talk to themselves and other people too. Like when they get frustrated with their siblings and start snapping quicker, or complaining and backtalking more, or even how the tone they use with you shifts. It's not because they woke up one day and decided to be difficult. It's because they've learned a certain way of speaking when things feel hard. A tone, a pattern, a rhythm, and they're just using what they've learned. It's kind of like if you walked into a house where everyone whispers, you'd probably start whispering too, without even realizing it. Or if everyone's loud and chaotic, you'll match that energy. This happens because emotions and tone transfer between people through something called emotional contagion. So that frustration, criticism, and discouragement you feel doesn't just stay with you, it spreads to your kids. This is really powerful. The tone in your home is shaped by what is normalized. If criticism is normalized, that becomes the language of the household. So the way you complain and criticize yourself is quietly teaching your kids how to talk to themselves, how to handle mistakes, how to respond when life feels hard. Remember, kids are sponges. They're always learning, shifting, and growing, which is great because if your words are shaping your child's voice, then changing your self-talk and the way you talk to your kids changes everything. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 24 says, "Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body." Remember, the tone of your home isn't just shaped by discipline strategies or routines, but by the flavor of your words. This voice shows that. Your words are either bringing sweetness and healing, or they're feeding stress and tension. Listen, friend, bitter words of criticism aren't doing the trick. It's time to switch to a honeycomb. Sweet, nourishing, life-giving. Not to fake positivity, but to use gracious words, the kind God is talking about. So instead of things like, I'm such a failure, you say, I'm showing up, and that's what matters. Do you feel the difference? One creates pressure and the other creates steadiness. When your words towards yourself soften, your tone towards your kids softens too. So when your child messes up, instead of snapping, why would you do that? It becomes, hey, it's okay. Let's fix it together. And your child feels that because gracious words don't just communicate instruction. They communicate safety, and safety changes everything. It removes the stress, diffuses the fight, and encourages patience. When kids feel safe, they're less reactive, more cooperative, and more open. And over time, they start using that same tone with their siblings, with you, with themselves. So here are 3 ways to live out this verse daily, not in a complicated way, but in a practical moment-by-moment way. First, catch the tone, not just the words. Awareness is key. You can't change what you don't notice. So start paying attention to what you say out loud and what you're thinking silently. Ask yourself, was that sweet or sharp? Was that building up or tearing down? This alone will start to wake up your patterns in your speech and tone, patterns that become the language your kids learn to imitate. You know how they say hindsight is 20/20? This is where you are using your hindsight to become aware of how your words are impacting the dynamic of your home. Second, stop the bitter fruit. Use tiny shifts to pause the pattern. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither will your honeycomb be. You build a new language pattern moment by moment. When you catch yourself in the act of criticizing yourself or others, pause, mid-sentence. Do not let it finish. It may feel awkward at first, but you are breaking a habit of negativity and destruction in order to lay a new foundation of sweet honeycomb. This is where you are becoming aware of the power of your words in the moment, rather just in hindsight. This is powerful because when you're aware as it's happening, you have the power to change it, course correct, mid-sentence. And step number 3 is to enjoy the sweetness. How do you act when you take a bite of something so sweet and delectable? A sweet, juicy strawberry, or a perfectly concocted chocolate lava cake. Oh man, when you put that in your mouth, you close your eyes and smile, relishing in the burst of sweetness on your tongue. When you catch yourself about to criticize yourself or others, pause, close your eyes, breathe in God's love and truth over you. Then with a small smile of delight, speak. It's impossible to speak negativity, destruction, and criticism when you're smiling, full of joy and peace. Positive, gracious words become the overflow of what's in your heart, God's love. So instead of saying, I'm such an idiot, you find yourself saying, you know what, I need a little help right now. Or instead of, you never listen, it changes to, hey, can you come here for a second? These small changes will have a big impact. And this works because cognitive behavioral therapy shows that replacing thoughts rewires your neural pathways, reduces stress, and improves emotional regulation. Over time, this becomes automatically. It's literally how you rewrite the script in your home. And pretty soon, you see the atmosphere shift. Not overnight, but steadily. The edges soften, the tension eases, the connection grows because gracious words really are healing. Mama, you don't need a perfect system. You need a new tone, and it starts with one simple choice. Speak to yourself the way you want your kids to speak to you. That's how you change everything. St. Francis de Sales said, "You will accomplish more by kind words and a courteous manner than by anger or sharp rebuke." When I changed my words and my tone to be one that comes with a serene smile, stress and discord in my home disappeared. I felt calm and at peace because I was no longer attacking myself with my words, and my kids followed suit because I was modeling to them how to use words for kindness, not criticism. Friend, your voice matters more than you think. Not just what you say to your kids, but what you say to yourself, because that voice and tone becomes theirs. So speak life today, even if it feels unnatural, even if it feels forced, because over time, it becomes truth. And that truth will change your home. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Conquer Mom Stress. If today's conversation encouraged you, hit follow and leave a review. That lets me know that these episodes are hitting the topics you need. And while you're there, share this podcast with another mom who might need to hear it. Your thoughtfulness might just be what she needs to get through the day. Remember, this is your place to pause, rest, and start conquering mom stress, one small step at a time. Motherhood isn't meant to drain the life out of you. It's meant to be lived with joy, even on the messy days. And together, we're going to find that joy again.